far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 women growing strong. 100 women where you belong. You stood tall and now you see, you have reached your destiny. Woman, woman.
As people of African descent, we offer this land recognition in solidarity with the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island in the efforts and deliberate intentions toward decolonization. As people of African descent, we acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that sustains us, express deep gratitude to its indigenous peoples, and pledge to honor our dignity and divinity that ultimately connects us all. By Kay Johnson. Welcome to 100 ABC Fireside Chats. 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women is a bold project initiated by co-authors and co-founders, the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, Dr. Denise O'Neill Green, and Donna Jones Simmons. Our mission is to celebrate and archive the professional accomplishments of trailblazing Black women from all across Canada. The goal is to create an ever-expanding database available for current and future generations via print media, public and private libraries, as well as our website, which is www.100abcwomen.ca. In addition to our fireside chats on topics that matter to our communities, such as education, healthcare, entertainment, creative arts, trade union, and so much more, we offer biennial book launching galas and biannual symposiums. The co-authors and co-founders would like to take this opportunity to thank each of you for attending today's fireside chat. We know that you will find these sessions educational and inspirational. So sit back, relax, and hear from our brilliant and talented honorees.
Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to be here moderating the Season 5, Episode 22 of the 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women Fireside Chat Series. It's truly an honor on this bleak Sunday afternoon because our amazing panelists are going to brighten up your day. I am so excited as we discuss sustainability and Black-led social enterprise. And it's indeed an honor to welcome my first guest because I can't wait to hear what these amazing women have to share in terms of sustainability. And, you know, when I think of sustainability, I can tell you that the challenges that we face in a lot of these organizations is why anti-Black racism tries to keep thriving in different organizations. And I can tell you that the wisdom and knowledge of our first amazing panelist, Elder Janelle, will really re-energize and ignite us all. So with that, I'd like to welcome Elder Janelle Skerritt to the screen. She is the founder and owner of Adinkra Farm, a Black-led social enterprise dedicated to cultivating sustainable futures through land-based learning, food sovereignty, community development, and cultural reconnection. Through Adinkra Farm, she creates opportunities for individuals, families, and organizations to engage with the land through farming, retreats, education, and wellness experiences. She fundraises to support students attending university in Ghana and hosts restorative retreats for Black women entrepreneurs and professionals. So please welcome Elder Janelle, advisor and mentor. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And yes, I'm bringing the sunshine today because it's raining outside here in Innisfil, Ontario, where I am sitting. And I just feel as though we need a little sunshine in our day today.
Absolutely. So could you please tell us about your amazing social enterprise?
Sure. So I should say I'm co-owner because my husband and I have invested considerable time, energy, and love into building the Adinkra Farm concept. And really, it was born out of both of us working in community for many, many years and noticing that we were always getting either moved away from spaces or shushed in spaces, and we didn't have space. And then my husband had been part of Truths and Rights, which is one of Canada's first reggae bands that really hit the scene and talked about social commentary. And one of the things that they said was that they would create in relation to the struggle of our people. And so their vision was to have a place like Adinkra Farm, where we could look at issues of sustainability like food sovereignty and so on, but also cultivating our own cultural practices. And so that's how Adinkra Farm was born and has grown, and we've been there now 16 years.
Oh, wow. So
Mhm.
Adinkra Farm operates as a social enterprise. So
Mhm.
what does that model allow you to accomplish that a traditional business or charity might not?
Right. So in the business sense, people are focused on money and on making a profit and making efficiencies that relate to that. At a charitable with a charitable approach, it's all about the good that you're doing, but you're also watching the bottom line. You have to be responsible and so on. Well, with the Dinker Farm, we marry those two things because we are as concerned with the welfare of our community in everything that we take on as we are with the outcome of having some financial stability for the operation. So we are not just encouraging profit making and consumerism and those things, but we're also nurturing our people from the soul or the spirit all the way out. And so the activities we select to have at the farm and to host at the farm fulfill the three pillars of the farm to reclaim our cultural heritage and practices and traditions, to build institutions that are strong in our community, and to grow not only in the spiritual sense, but also we grow food, because food and sustainability and really control or sovereignty around food is critical for our community's long-term sustainability. Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. Thank you for that. And I look forward to continuing our discussion. But at this moment, I want to bring forward an amazing social impact leader, Adibola Adefoye. Welcome. And this is an amazing educator, community advocate, with extensive experience in community development, equity, and newcomer support. She is a team leader at Adibola Adefoye Consulting, where she provides anti-racism and professional development training. As the founder of the Afro Women and Youth Foundation, she has led programs that have supported over 8,000 individuals across Ontario. Wow. And through her work, she helps organizations and communities address barriers, promote inclusion, and create positive social change. So welcome, Adibola.
Thank you, Kathy.
It's such an honor to have you join this wonderful group of ladies. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your social enterprise.
Absolutely. I started the Afro Women and Youth Foundation, which is a registered charity organization, in 2019 in a Toronto shelter. So my daughter experienced the racism in the school system. We didn't get any support. My family had to navigate that as newcomer family in Toronto. And I saw that the strategies that we provided as parents was very helpful to our daughter. So I started speaking to newcomer moms in the GTA, precisely in North York, and just asking about their experiences. And so from there, I realized that there's a big gap. People were experiencing, newcomer families were experiencing racism and not sure how to deal with it. So I started to volunteer my time to provide weekend workshop in the shelter at Radisson Hotel in Toronto. And from just going to the shelter to speaking to newcomer Black moms and dads, and also engaging some of the youth members, I discovered that bigger needs were coming up. So we were just kind of speaking to them about their experiences, how they're settling in Canada. And then they were asking about clothing items, winter jackets, hygiene products. So I moved from not really move, but we kind of, as the needs were expanding, then I knew that I also had to do something bigger. So on my at campus, Seneca Polytechnic, where I was studying as a student, I decided to start the clothing bank program. So students, professors, people could donate to me on campus, and then I'll move those items to the shelter on the weekends. And that was how programming continued. So we moved from workshops to getting clothing items and hygiene products for families, and then getting volunteers, because as the needs were getting bigger, I saw that I couldn't do it alone. So I started recruiting volunteers, and we became a team of Black women who are passionate about helping people, just doing the work on the weekends in a Toronto shelter. So that was how it started, but it has moved from there. We're growing gradually. We're now in Sudbury, Ontario. We have a community center. The challenges are still there, but at least we're pushing forward.
Wow, that sounds exciting, and you've accomplished so much. But as a founder of the executive director, well, you're founder and executive director, I should say, who you are running a charity, and you have been running this organization for 7 years. What has been your biggest challenge in sustaining your organization, and how have you navigated it? And you talk about volunteers, so just how do you really sustain your organization?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So two things I'll say in terms of challenges: limited resources and limited funding. So when we started, I was just very passionate. I've been doing community work for over 10 years before I moved to Canada 10 years ago. So I came with some, resources in my toolbox and a lot of knowledge around the nonprofit sector. But I knew that passion alone was not going to sustain the work. So in fact, I started getting tired from like the second month of going to the shelter when I saw the needs of families. And that was how I started recruiting volunteers from my school at that time, which was Seneca Polytechnic. And what I did was to find people who are also passionate about this kind of work. As much as we needed volunteers, I just did not go everywhere asking people to come do the work. I looked for people who were already speaking the language of nonprofit, of community work, community development, mental health and wellness, because those were the things that we were focusing on. And I was able to get about 3 people. 2 of them were my professors from the School of Early Childhood Education. One was, or she's still a certified yoga trainer. So she came and was doing free yoga every weekend at the shelter. And that was really very powerful. That was actually how we started our mental health and wellness programming. Every weekend she comes, just volunteer her time. She was getting paid when she runs the services outside of our programming, but she was volunteering because she knew that I was just helping families. And the other person, another mentor from Uganda who understands the work and passionate, would come and provide support and listen to newcomers and facilitate workshops. And that was how that continued. So at a point, I also realized that we needed some money because, again, we were taking refreshment, but we were asking people to donate. But we needed money to buy some of the food items and the drinks that we were taking to the shelter. So I started looking for grant applications. Again, it's always good to move from the people that knows you and people that can at least trust you when you're just starting out. So what I did was to go back again to Seneca Polytechnic to speak to the business development programming there to say, I have this. It's not a business, it's a nonprofit, and I need some help. So I was asked to come pitch, and I went there, walked in. I was the first person who pitched a nonprofit to them in that program. But I did it so well, and they were like, this is so amazing. We can give you $3,000. And that happened at a time that COVID was all over, right? People were dealing with COVID, and there was COVID cases in the shelter. There was a lot of things happening, but that $3,000 was like a big relief for a new programming, a new organization, and we were able to use that to deliver some mental health and wellness programming in the shelter. So what that did for us was to make us have something in the bank account, and then we were also able to use that to be able to ask other funders for money. So we were saying, we have this 3,000, we got this 3,000 funding. We have implemented the project. This is what we did. We had the photos. We had like, it wasn't so much money, but we had all the things that we did, the reporting, the photos and everything. So we used that to ask for more money. And the next funding we got was $9,000. And that continued. So from the $9,000, because I knew that we had limited resources in terms of human resources and also finances. So what we did from the 9,000 was to get somebody that we were going to pay. I could not step into that role at that time as much as I was passionate because I had my school. As a mom of three. I couldn't just do it. So we had to get somebody who could do the work at that time and get paid for a few hours. And that was how the work continued. So again, it was from there kind of just continued to expand, and we got more money. Today we have a community center. We have people on payroll, full-time staff, part-time staff. We have auditors who audit our accounts. But again, it was just kind of from a very small vision from the shelter. We're no longer at the shelter, but we have kept relationships with all of those people from the beginning. The shelter people, the professors at the college, the funder of the 3,000, the 9,000, and it just continues to grow like that. So that's kind of the journey. But again, back to your question about challenges, it's limited resources and limited funding.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And as I listen to you, I can see your fellow panelists nodding their head in agreement. And I can tell you, it's all about, you say relationships and the money, money, money. And my next amazing panelist, Miss Lady Queen Candice Kachapoa. She is the queen of getting the money, building the relationships. And it's such a pleasure to have this amazing Jamaican-born Canadian social entrepreneur, a change maker who has championed Black youth engagement and leadership in international multilateral diplomacy. With over 15 years in the front line of social work experience and lived experience navigating precarious employment, Candice transformed from direct practice to public policy advocacy in 2015. Her Master of Social Work research became the foundation for the Developing Young Leaders of Tomorrow, and it was called Dialot, a non-profit she founded and has led as executive director since 2019. In 2021, she launched Dialot, a Black Diplomatic Academy, a public policy advocacy arm committed to creating pathways for Black youth in diplomacy. Her work has influenced global policies at the United Nations. She holds a consultative status with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and has provided thoughtful leadership on the Permanent Forum of People of African Descent from 2021 to 2023. She has led Canada's Inclusion and Equal Opportunity Policy Task Force at the G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliances. So please welcome the amazing Candice to the stage. Welcome.
Hi, Kathy. It's a pleasure to be here and such a wonderful opportunity to share with all these brilliant Black women just leading incredible change across our country. So happy to be here.
And thank you for agreeing to join us today. And could you tell us a bit about, Dialot, which is now OEDD? So if you could please tell us a little history.
For sure. So I'll start with Dialot and I'll transition to OEDD. So Dialot really started well before 2019. Dialot started as I was in my undergrad in social work at York University, and I saw that the area that I wanted to pursue in social work, there was really no social workers, whether at the professor level or at this student study level, who was really looking at public policy development and engagement, especially for people that look like us. We were absent from the conversation, and I ran into a challenge where when I said that I wanted to study public policy and the engagement of Black social workers in public policy, my professors told me flat out, we can't help you. We don't practice here. We don't know the space, so we can't help you. And so I really had to navigate, like, what did that mean? When I thought about, okay, how am I going to go into a space where I'm going to have to chart my own territory? It was demoralizing because I was like, well, I can't do a really good job here because the path was never made, and I'm going to have to make this path. Well, Dialot became this idea of, well, if the path is not there, I need to create the path. And in order for me to create the path, I need to understand the environment. I need to understand the movers and shakers in the space. And I need to understand why some systems are set up for some people to succeed, while for our people that look like me, we're situated at the very bottom always. We're the last always to enter the room and the first to exit the room. And every room of power, we're always the last one in and the first one's out. So I wanted to change that narrative. And, I had the opportunity, first and foremost, to really explore what precarious work was. What did that mean for our people? Because what the data was telling me in school was that we are amongst the highest educated people in this country, Black people. And that there was no translation into quality employment for us. We're getting low wages. Precarious work means that we're moving from contract to contract, but there's not really this mechanism to help us pursue high impact, high income careers. And so, getting the chance to travel, I did my first diplomatic mission in 2017. I went to Europe. I went to Latvia, of all places. At the time, I had no idea even where Latvia was, but I got the chance to go. And when I went there, I saw like Black young people had to crowdfund to get their way there, get themselves there. We had to take 3 or 4 different flights, because you're piecing things together, right? So the finances could meet, right? So you could get there. And when we got there, everyone else that did not look like us came in, that day with our luggage and everything fine. But the Black people, our luggages were lost or, in different places where we weren't. And this was a phenomenon that I saw on the international stage, but it was happening in Canada. And I was really, really concerned about that. And I had to think about, what am I going to do with my social work practice? What change can I make here? And so, as Adebola talked about, that first funding, that first, small grant investment in 2018, after putting together an application for Laidlaw Foundation, they granted me $25,000 to develop a mentorship program. It was called Mentoring for Major Impact. And that program really was the foundation to what eventually developed into Dialot, Developing Young Leaders of Tomorrow Today. And Dialot, in its first year, brought four young people to the United Nations in New York. And those young women learned about what international policy meant and how it shapes domestic policy. And it was a springboard for what eventually became the Black Diplomats Academy and the Lead Like a Girl program, which we support young professionals ages 18 to 35 interested in the diplomatic space. Completely niche, completely different from what typical young people get the opportunity to do in a mentoring program. I wanted it to be something that had an outcome of high impact and high income potential. And we transitioned from OEDD, our mandate shifted in 2025. So just last year, we did a complete rebrand of the organization because we recognized some nuances that were happening that if you're not involved in policy engagement, you miss it. Nonprofits miss these discussion points, these inflection points that we're similar to what we're talking about now. Nonprofits miss them. But because we were so focused on education to employment and policy advocacy for sustainability, we were able to recognize that in order for us to continue to lead and to thrive, our organizational mandate had to change. And so, Organization for Economic Development and Diplomacy, we put our mandate right in our name. We're concerned about economic development for young people, and we're also concerned in the space of diplomacy, so diplomatic relations.
And
That's it.
as you said, if the path is not there, then you create, the path. And when I hear you speak and I just see your energy, you remind me of the Jamaican saying that says, "You lick about your talawa." And for those that don't know what that means, I'll translate. It means you're small but mighty. And yes, I can't wait to further, you know, get into the meat of sustainability with you. But this time, I would love to bring up Latoya Belfon. And she's an award-winning entrepreneur, publisher, educator, and community leader, always advancing literacy, education, and cultural storytelling. She's the founder and CEO of LabWorks Publishing, a Canadian publishing company that helps authors publish, protect, and position their work while maintaining ownership of their intellectual property. The four-time best-selling author and sought-after speaker, Latoya has been recognized as a CBC Black Changemaker, a top 10 Black woman to watch recipient, and many more awards. Welcome, Latoya.
Thank you for having me, Kathy. Thank you,
It's
other
indeed an
panelists.
honor. Thank
Thank
you. And could you tell us about this amazing publishing company, LabWorks, that you created, your
ah,
baby?
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, as many of us started, we saw a need in society and we created our companies. That's how a lot of social enterprises start. And so, when I looked into what can I do with my stories and having a newborn, having a child, stepping into motherhood usually triggers that inside of you to make the world better. And so I saw that I wanted to make the world look more like the children I was having, Black children. And so I looked into the skills that I had and I looked at how entrepreneurs were becoming successful. Yes, passion was indeed necessary, but having skills and resources and being very good at something was also one of the key to success. And I was good at writing and storytelling and telling stories. So I started, I gave myself a challenge, learn how to publish, illustrate, and put that book out there in 3 days and don't give up. I was nursing my little one, and that's exactly what I did. Because, sometimes you have goals and dreams, and if you don't put that demand on your own self to succeed, you end up starting a relationship with yourself where it's okay to fail, and it's okay to stop, and it's okay to give up. And so I did not want to build that relationship. If I gave a goal, I wanted to succeed and I wanted to see it through. And so I did that. Once I did that and I put that out there in my community rallied behind me. And And all of a sudden, people were like, "How did you do it? What did you do? How da da da?" And then instead of it being a path for me, I had to think, well, I wanted to become an author. I wasn't thinking about everyone else and the community and stories that were being, hidden away, that the need for that as well as intergenerational conversation and traditions that could be passed through literature. I wasn't thinking that big. And then I said, wow, okay. I need to do something here because people were asking, and here birth Labworks Publishing. So apart from that, we've got into so many things, as well as working with other community organizations where we improve educational outcomes. Because I'm also a teacher here in Montreal, Quebec. Cultural initiatives and community partnerships helped us to preserve our traditions and culture in the Caribbean and African community. So we've seen that representation in literature is a problem, and it's still a problem. It's even in a problem with AI and the data that is used to program AI, a software that has text and history written into it, does not represent the Black individual right now. So we have moved into many different spaces to ensure that representation is seen for written work. So that's a little bit of what I do.
Oh, thank you for that. Because, listening to you, I can see you have built initiatives that bridge education, publishing, literacy, and community development. So, how can Black-led organizations build lasting impact beyond like a single project or a single funding cycle?
This first starts with the vision. I think one of the biggest things that I've seen over the course of my business career is the lack of vision can really limit how far you can go. If you can only get past your vision for one product, that's the amount of work and action you would actually take. Or if it's only about, oh, I just want to put a product out there. But if you don't think beyond the product, beyond the impact, or probably being the dominant in that field, that's the type of action and work you'll actually invest in it unconsciously, actually. So for me, I started to think about sustainability because I am the person who I built for legacy. I was thinking ahead. Once I start Labworks Publishing, what is it going to be known for? I saw into the future of the building, of helping hundreds and thousands of authors become more profitable with their voice and their literature. And I saw that it was normal for curriculum to entail a Black author. I saw that it would not only be me and McGill looking at a book that had Serena Williams on it in a physiology class and feeling that so seen, but it would become normal for that book to be there, as well as other books to be there. That it wouldn't be just February that would entail Black literature. I saw beyond that. And it takes a lot of grit, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of building for the future where sustainability comes in mind. So another part of a company that I co-founded is Brandality Solutions, and we work with not-for-profits, and funding and sustainability is always the dialogue. Funding is one thing, but I have some myths that I wanted to just touch on. And I think Adebola started with the passion idea. It's great to have passion for what you do. It's great to love what you do. But if you're pitching for a grant or you're pitching your business, passion will show that you have great care. It will show that you love what you do, but it won't take away the need for your order of your financials to be set up. It won't take away that your team may lack efficiency and lack the capacity to govern large funds. It will not take the place that you have your mission and your mandate. And we brought that up, which is really important. We make these missions and we make these mandates, and then we're applying for grants and funding that it doesn't align. So it's really important to what is your mission? What is your mandate? What is that you're trying to do? So passion won't help you in the end secure funding. It could get you into the room. They may smile and laugh, but at the end of the day, they want to see what are you going to do with the money, and not just spending the money on the events and initiatives. How can you multiply that? It's not against the law to multiply a grant money. It's not against the law to multiply funding. That's how you become sustainable. I think I'll stop there for now. I feel like
Yeah, thank no, no, no,
I
because
think I'll stop there for now.
that's a good segue into my next question, because I want to dig a little deeper into this whole concept of sustainability. Because I remember as a brand new trustee almost 12 years ago, I was once told, as I started my journey in this arena, that, oh, you're going to get tired. You won't be able to sustain this, right? They already told, like, I give you 2 weeks, and here I am 12 years later. So I just want to delve a little deeper into this whole concept of sustainability. And I'm going to ask Elder Janelle, to start it off, because you, with all your wisdom, and you've seen a little bit more than some of us on this panel. So I just want to know, how do you define sustainability through an African-centered lens?
Well, I was listening intently to the wonderful stories that these very powerful women were telling, and it struck me that part of our brand at Adinkra Farm is about reclaiming our knowledge of ourselves. And what I heard was a lot of the things that actually define an Afrocentric approach. I heard really caring about bringing community together. I heard really not necessarily being motivated by money, but having money in order to accomplish something for community. I heard working together. And sometimes when we think about Afrocentric, we think about it in the way that our European organized education has taught us, that it's about now putting African people in a dominating position, but it's not that at all. It really is about asking the central question that these women have asked: what about the future for our community? It is centering our community in our conversations. And so when I think about what it means to build sustainability from that, I heard examples of reciprocity. So we're not necessarily just saying we need money, but you were very particular. I think it was Adebola. You didn't just choose hot bodies to come and volunteer. You were looking for people who had that passion and that commitment and so on. So therefore, it's a reciprocal exchange. They're getting the fulfillment of fulfilling their own, who they are, their goals, all of those sorts of things. But you are also benefiting, and then the community benefits. So all around, there's Ubuntu happening. There's that sense of interdependence. There's the sense of including reciprocity, which is one of those things that's part of the Ma'at tradition as well. And so for those who may not be familiar, Ma'at is the ancient Egyptian values and principles that we're following. And then I would suggest that sometimes, even when we think we're creating something, if we go back, we're actually just remembering. One of my mentors, Aina Nia Ayadele, talks about remembering our power, right? And so sometimes what comes up for us as, hey, I need to do this and I need to do it in this way, it is really just placing ourselves. So to me, sustainability is that remembering, and is about knowing about our power and our resilience. And it means that we steward resources. We don't just consume resources. So that's why the things that you were talking about, Latoya, around when you look at an organization and you say, is this organization fit? It's not just about how are we doing now. It's how are we building for the future. So that embodies sustainability. I also think that it is an understanding, and I heard it in what you're saying, because you're talking about the past, present, and the future. So it's an understanding that we come from somewhere, you know. Sadly, not all of us from Jamaica.
Not to worry.
Not to worry, not to worry. No, we come from somewhere, and we come from people, and we come from a common ancestry, right? And then we are building in the now for the future. So that concept is really what sustainability is about, because none of what we're talking about is, we may be a drop in the ocean, right? Of our people, but we're an important drop. We're adding something to the future. And I think if I was to define it in terms of a Dinka farm through the lens of a Dinka farm, it is that we are not only in the soil, but we are in the souls of the people that are coming to the farm and working on our projects. So I'll leave it there to share with all of you.
That's amazing. And I'm going to invite other panelists to jump in with their definition of sustainability, because I heard it clearly when you said about remembering. I thought of the importance of centering your why, because these systems are set up, they're designed to frustrate us, they're designed to isolate us, they're designed to vilify us. I've been told, oh, you're a loony bin. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you only see things through a black lens. They do everything to kind of minimize the importance of your work. So I think sustainability is key. And I was just wondering if any of you other amazing ladies had any thoughts on what sustainability means in regards to your sphere.
I can jump in. I wanted to support something Elder Janelle was speaking of. When she spoke about community and center and touching on those ideas, what I really saw coming up for me, just to support what she was saying, is that sustainability requires onboarding processes, offboarding processes, and successors. I think this is a big thing in our community, and gatekeeping might come somewhere around here, because often we're threatened by others who may have knowledge and expertise that may in term threaten our security in a position. And so we want to keep some of the knowledge of the company or the operations just within reach of some people, but not sharing everything where they're so dependent upon your presence and your abilities to function. And that is not an effective way to think for sustainability. We must think about onboarding processes. When new people, volunteers come on board, there's a process to get them up and running. And then offboarding, when someone leaves, there's someone in transition coming to keep the processes going. I think one of the biggest threats to sustainability is a lack of mentorship in training others to come behind us, to carry the vision forward, the legacy. And that's kind of like my definition. One word, legacy. How am I building that legacy? And what are the processes and the operations that I have in place to make sure that the mission goes forward without me? Without me.
Amen.
That's
And
what I
that's
think.
hard to do, because I tell you, you kind of have to reflect on your own mortality. And a lot of us, it's a scary place to go to,
Yeah.
right? And we forget that none of us are here forever. Nobody is irreplaceable, right? And I think of countless organizations that I can think of that have literally died with the death of their co-founder or founder, right? Because all the knowledge is like the whole library burnt down with their death, and the rest of members have no clue where to start, what to do. So as you said, I think it's very important, the onboarding, the offboarding, and that, not to be afraid of letting go, and trust, because that entails trust. So I think it's important to find people that you can trust with your baby, because a lot of times people get so personally attached to organizations that you co-found, right? I was one of the co-founders of the Black Trustee Caucus, and I literally see it as a baby that I birthed, right? But it's very important to ensure that you have repetitive, because it's so important to you that you're afraid, oh my gosh, if another person takes it over, they're not going to really have your vision and see. I think trust is so important. Any other comments? Anybody else want
I
to
can
jump in?
go.
Sure.
I feel like Elder Janelle and Latoya already touched on everything, but yeah, it's okay. So yeah, so when I think about sustainability, I also think about sustainable leadership, because I feel like sustainability for any organization cannot be taken or removed from the leader or the founder of the organization. And the question I continue to ask myself, just as Latoya said, is what if I'm not here tomorrow? Will this work continue? And that just helps me to continue to think about what could happen in the future. What will I want to see? How should this work continue to grow even when I'm not there? It's not an easy state to be in, but it's just the reality. If you're growing something meaningful, something that is transformative, I think the earlier we begin to think about big questions like that, the better for us as founders. So I do that a lot, and I also think in our organization we do um, you know a lot of strategy sessions with the board of directors. And when we started Afro Women and Youth Foundation, one thing I found is that not everybody, a lot of people want to sit on nonprofit and social enterprise boards, but not everyone is really passionate and willing to bring something to the table. So what we found at the beginning is that people would say they wanted to be on advisory, wanted to be on the board and put the names on LinkedIn, but they weren't doing anything to help the organization. They were not contributing to grant writing. I was sent grants that I was working on, and even to kind of review before we submit, they weren't contributing. But again, we get the money and they're there to decide how we spend the money, how much staff gets paid, and all that. So I started rethinking our board recruitment to really look for people who are really passionate and want to do the work. And that has shifted things for us from just having a board that is not working to having a board that, for example, we have a treasurer who sits with our auditors and the bookkeeper and go through a lot of the things being done. I'm not a financial person, but of course, I know that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, but we also need an expertise of somebody who's got that knowledge to do the work. And she's the board chair and she does everything that she needs to do, willing to review grant applications before they submit. And that is huge. That is very, very important. And that affects the sustainability of any organization, because if your books are not in good shape, then you'll be in problem, right? So I think that the way that the people that we work with, the how we recruit board members, can help to shape the way that the organization is going too. So yeah, so mentorship, hiring, even hiring, employing people. Again, sometimes we employ some people and all they just want to do is kind of just get paid and just leave the job and go away, but there are also some people who wants to do the job, who you can really mentor, and there's leadership development happening, and that way all of those people contribute to the sustainability of the organization.
Thank you, Adimuno, for that. And it's so true. And it really resonates with me what you said. And I think of Candice, when I think of sustainability, and I would like you to actually tell me about what was the motivation for creating your organization, Dialot, and it morphed into OEDD. And is that motivation still the same 7 years later? How are you sustaining and plan to sustain this amazing organization that you have created? Because it's a really specific niche that I would argue is absolutely needed.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Kathy. And I like if I will piggyback off of the sustainability conversation because it leans right into this question. And what I was going to say about the sustainability part for us is that we've learned over time to spend much more resources on calling people in than calling people out. Because as you know, a common phrase in Jamaica is you get more ants with honey than you do with vinegar, right? And so it's people that run institutions. And so people don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to have their names dragged in social media and all of that because of institutional culture or whatever the case is. So we've learned over 7 years that how you approach, especially when you're doing work that is atypical to Black communities, when we are not when we are always in the minority in these spaces, you have to learn how to use allyship to your advantage. And allyship in this scenario means that, a lot of the rooms that we want to get into, our people aren't there. So we have to build those relationships. And that's a part of sustainability, is being able to build relationships in spaces where we don't have the numbers, we're not represented, and we don't have power. We don't hold power yet. So that is a part of the sustainability that I've been building over the last 7 years. Where Dialogue started, we started with intention, right? We started from a place of um, defining what was missing. So we knew what was missing was that Black young people were graduating at high levels, holding bachelor's and master's degree and PhD levels. But once you graduate, what next? Right? I use my personal lived experience. I graduated with a Master of Social Work degree. I had almost 20 years of frontline experience in social work, but I couldn't get a job. The jobs that I was getting were car wash jobs, like, going and working at a car wash, working at a grocery store. And nothing is wrong with these jobs, right? They're jobs. But for the level of academic level that I was at, the jobs just weren't matching, right? And when I did get something that was in the realm of my degree, um, what my degree should allow me to earn, it was always contractual. It was always short term. And so what Dialot did at the time was fill the gap. It filled the gap in allowing me to think about, okay, I can create a nonprofit organization that supports the pipeline development for young people to see their way into careers that are atypical to Black experience. Diplomacy, even up until 2021, there were only four Black ambassadors for representing Canada up to 2021. Now we have somewhere around 11, right? And ambassadorships exist for however long this country has been in existence. I think we're at 154 years or somewhere close to there. But imagine that up until 2021, we only had four Black ambassadors, and two of those are now transitioning out of their permanent observership and permanent representativeship, right? So think about that. That says to us that the pipeline that needs to support aspiring diplomats of African descent is a critical component to our own sustainability, to our own opportunity to shape both domestic and international policy. And if there is no mechanism that exists to address this gap, there's absolutely no way for us to have a future where we are shaping the policies that impact us home and abroad, right? We were crisis driven under Dialot. It was about, can we get jobs for young people? And our young people are incredibly challenge in terms of the highest unemployment rate in the country, right? Black youth hold the highest unemployment rate in the country. That's a problem. That is a sustainability crisis for our country, but yet it doesn't seem to be making headlines. How come it's not making headlines? Because the voices are so muted, um, just being able to try to survive, right? Nobody's really challenging the status quo of, well, no, if any other G7 or G20 country has a 29.5% unemployment rate for young people, that would be a worldwide crisis. But here in Canada, it's not, right? So we under Dialot, we were very focused on short-term vision. Let's address the crisis in our community right now. But then we had to think about future planning, succession planning, yes, but really putting in those core pillars that our young people can depend on to say, okay, this is something that is created with me as an individual, but me as a community, me as a part of the African diaspora in Canada. This is created intentionally for my future success. And so the invention that happened under OEDD when we transitioned was really about, yes, taking that intention around solving a problem in our community to make it a broader solution focused mandate for young people, especially. We were looking at thinking beyond the micro, so thinking beyond the individual. We're looking at what's the impact for our community, and then what's the impact for our country, and what's the impact for our country as seen in the world, right? And then we changed the way we were seeing the problem as we got to fix it right now. It's an immediate crisis, to now we change it from a problem to what is possible. Now we're in the playing and creation stage where we're saying, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Now let's make all these dreams possible. Let's dream as big as we want to. Let's think about all the different areas that we can influence, and let's go for it. There's nothing holding us back. One thing that I always say is that my creator had the biggest dream for me when he created me to build Dialot. And so now I am just free to dream anything, and there's nothing holding me back from accomplishing those dreams. So that's kind of where we started, and that's where we're going. And the change for over the 7 years is that we know that we cannot do this work on our own. So we make sure that calling people in is the biggest part of how we ensure this work keeps going. And we also make sure that 2020 happened, where we had the dual pandemic. We had COVID, and we had the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and all of these kind of racial reckoning that was happening in 2020. But I realized something very early on in the pandemic and in the racial reckoning, is that Black issues were not going to be in vogue for a very long time. Political will was going to shift, and all of a sudden, it's not all of a sudden, but all of a sudden, we were going to have something else take mainstream media, take attention away from us. And we're seeing that reckoning happening, where DEI programs and policies are all being rolled back. So I was faced with this decision: how am I going to make sure that this really, really critical work that I was doing in service of Black youth, Black young people, how is I going to make sure that when political will changes, when corporate institutions are no longer giving sponsorship dollars to Black-led initiatives, how is I going to make sure that this work continued? And I thought about, um, since our work is about policy advocacy, what policy instrument could I connect this work to, outside of it just being, oh, you're Black, so we're going to give you money? Because once you say, oh, no, you're not on our flavor of the month anymore, we're still going to have to figure out how to serve Black youth. So the policy issue that I connected our work to was the Sustainable Development Goals. All 17 goals are social issues, and all of them touch Black communities. But not a whole lot of organizations even recognized that that was a mechanism they could use. And so we made it a part of our work that we were focused on reducing poverty. We were focused on getting good quality jobs for young people, making sure that we were tapping into industry. And guess what? In 2025, 26, guess what our prime minister is all of a sudden very focused on? Guess what? These are Black issues. But guess what? There needs to be that connection that happens, and that organization that helps to drive that connection, make it plain, so that we never get off the mainstream conversation. And it's all about the invention and taking the intention forward.
Absolutely. And I want to come back and touch on the sustainability goals a little later. But now I wanted to, as I reflect on each of your perspectives with regards to sustainability, we heard about calling in people, trust, onboarding, offboarding, remembering, right? We talk about intentionally choosing our volunteers. And, one thing as I listen to you ladies, I see we have in common. And what is it? Social workers, education, right? And it just shows the importance. And Adebola, I'm going to ask you, because as I look, you have a diploma in early childhood education, you have a whole host of different certification. You're a social worker too, master, bachelor in social work. You're pursuing your PhD, and you look at the multiple hats that you wear. Because many founders, you ladies, you don't just have one hat, you know. Many founders wear multiple hats. So I'm wondering, how do you balance leadership, growth, and personal well being while ensuring the long term sustainability of your work?
Yeah, thank you for that question. One thing I tell people is that I'm the executive director who does, all of these things that you've talked about, the grant writer, the one who's managing the front desk if I have to. But at the same time, I'm not somebody who wants to be on the payroll of Afro Women and Youth Foundation. And that takes a lot of pressure from me and also helps me to be able to get some time for self-care because so like last year, for example, we didn't have enough funding, and I have two staff that I knew that I just didn't want to let them go. They play a very important role in the organization, and if we had to let them go, that's going to be a lot of pressure on me. I'm already doing a lot as a volunteer ED. So if I let go these two people, I know that I was going to break down myself. So what we did was to, again, this kind of ties into sustainability too. We have always been looking for funding, writing grant applications, but we haven't ever explored fundraiser. So last year we explored that a little bit and we were able to get some money. So that helped us to keep those two key people as part-time staff even because we had low funding. So again, to your question, what I do is to make sure that I set boundaries. When the work gets too much, I know how to step away, and it's easier for me to step away, step aside, and manage the things I can do as a volunteer ED than being on the payroll when sometimes the entire budget of the organization cannot even pay me. So it's easier for me, and that has worked for me over the years. I have other things that I do on the side that pays me, so it's easier for me to take that approach, and that has been very helpful. Again, I would also say that we have a very strong staff team. We're small, but people who are very dedicated and very committed, and we also have committed volunteers, and that has helped our organization to keep moving forward. Gradually, we're not like there, we are not where we want to be, but at least we're moving forward on a very good pace. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I'll say that I'm able to, set boundaries. I know how to step aside, and I'm able to step aside because there are people who are paid to do the work.
Great. Thank you for
Again,
that.
the challenge in that is that I continue to look for more money to be able to to be able to keep those people to get their own work going. So the grant writing piece, I think that's the biggest work that a nonprofit, a social enterprise does. At the moment, I do all of that at Afro Women and Youth Foundation because we don't have money to pay a grant writer. So that is big. It is a lot of work, but it's been challenging. But we just keep pushing. And I think with grant writing, once you kind of get started and you're doing fine. One success just keeps building on the other and you just keep moving that way. But we could use some help.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You know, and Elder Janelle, I'm in awe of your wisdom. Like I could sit and listen to you just talk. You're such a fountain of knowledge. You're a mentor, you're an advisor. So I want to ask you, what do you think is your responsibility as all of these things to our community, a revered elder in our community? What advice would you give to Black entrepreneurs who want to build businesses that create both social impact and financial sustainability?
Right. So I'm so thankful for your words. And I consider myself an elder in training at the moment. And I think I'm trying to tell people that I spend a lot of time reading, studying, learning, remembering what elders taught me, because I do take the responsibility very seriously. It's not just about the gray hairs under my head wrap. It really is about being in service to community and taking that responsibility. But as I was listening and reflecting on something that we repeat often in our community is that we talk about succession and we talk about the need for financial sustainability and those things. So I'd like to tie those two things together with I think we need to be in relationship with each other. And so part of my role as elder is trying to look for ways to connect people. And you talked about also self-care. So, sustainability includes sustaining ourselves, right? We have to be taking care of ourselves. And quite often when you're a founder, I know I'm strumming the pain of those in the on the panel as well, is that we give, we give, we give, we give. And so, what does sustainability look like? It looks like taking care of ourselves and taking care of community. So, when we talk about succession, one way to make sure that we don't burn out is to bring our children along, bring other young people along, make sure they're in the conversation. This society encourages us to compartmentalize according to different age groups. And so, I noticed something, and I often mention it when I speak, but I've noticed that when my children were young, all of the television shows excluded adults that were geared towards them. So I stopped them from watching, I won't mention all the names, but all of the children's networks, they weren't allowed to watch because almost every one of the shows, adults were either bumbling idiots or, they're off, and these children are making decisions on their own. So part of the effort, I think, for sustainability is to walk with our children through the experiences, make sure that we do that, and then all the children are our children. So even if we haven't birthed any, you know, I borrow people's children on a regular basis and have them all over the place doing things with me. If when I started doing public speaking, I would bring them along. I'm doing a workshop with young people, surprisingly, next week, and I'm going to have a young person standing beside me, helping and doing, because that's how we create the succession. They don't learn it if they're not doing it. And then when you talk about financial sustainability, the the, the treadmill that you're mentioning at Ebola, I've been on that, where it's like you're up until 5 o'clock in the morning, writing the grant that's due by noon or by whatever the case may be, and you are burnt out and stretched out. And that is because one of the things I think, Candice, we can work on is good funding policy that talks about how our organizations can achieve that level of sustainability, core funding, so that we're not having to worry about those things. But then the model that we have at Adinka Farm is completely self-sustaining. We raise money from community. We consider other ways of contributing that aren't dependent on money, what they might call in kind, right? And I have a history of having been a fundraiser as well. So I know how hard it is to raise money. I have been in the executive director chair, writing grants, teaching other people in my organization to write grants, so that's another, element of taking the mystery out of it and really just building in that what is called kujichagulia, the second day of Kwanzaa, self-determination, all those ways that we have built. And I run a susu. We need susu, tontine, guild partner. These are the ways that we make sure that the money circulates in our community. And the last thing I'll say is that I've been busy developing a fundraising strategy that looks like a susu and acts like a susu, but is really a monthly giving program. If you translate that, to help with the Canadian Institute for People of African Ancestry and other initiatives in our community. So I think we want to lean heavily on our traditions, but also think about how did my mom, who never made over $60,000 a year, own two homes? How did she do that? It is because of things like susu economics and building and having a culture of interdependence with other women who each one of them saved and bought their houses, and they anyway. So I admire the work of those elders. I'm complete. Mm-hmm.
Amen. And what resonates with what you just said too is the importance that I think as a community, we have to get back to that village mentality and see, as you say, every child as your child. We have to
Mhm.
get back to aunties. Like my children, for example, they cannot call an adult by their first name in my
Mhm.
airdrop. It's always
Mhm.
auntie because we have to, their success is, I didn't do this alone. I did it because of a village, right? I did it because of you, Elder Janelle, you, Candice, you, Latoya, you, Adebola. It's the whole village that is responsible for children. So, and I think if we go back, and that's our roots, that's how we are as a people, right? And I find that really fascinating that you should bring that up in your reflection, Elder Janelle. And Latoya, when I think of many Black women, and they're leading with purpose, they're leading organizations and businesses. What advice would you, as an amazing entrepreneur yourself, what would you give to the emerging leaders who want to create meaningful community impact whilst also building organizations that are financially sustainable and they are positioned for growth? You're, you're on mute.
Sorry, thank you so much, Kathy. I think like with businesses in general and women, it's becoming comfortable with the term profit, revenue. As women, as not-for-profits, it's or business, sometimes you just think like, oh, it's enough that I put myself out there. Oh, it's enough that I show up, but it's okay to want to make a profit and it's okay to have purpose, but to have profit too. We need to become comfortable with money, talking about money, writing down goals for money. We need money. We need money to run our companies. We need money to consistently build. Money is needed at all areas. And I think sometimes we have such an uncomfortability with the desire to want money that sometimes we can, kind of defeat or put ourselves in positions where we're not able to access those opportunities because it kind of lingers on our worth. So I think that Black women and businesses, Black businesses who are, governed by women or anyone, yes, you can have community impact, and that's incredibly important. And I am one for community impact, but I'm also one that I want to become a multimillionaire. And I'm not gonna feel any type of way about that. I am going to be the one that's let's talk about the money, and I could bridge that off on even what Candice mentioned before. I'm sit on a board for Gemstar Circle of Excellence scholarship mentorship program, and our community is great at let's give a scholarship, and we may touch one of those sustainable goals about providing unemployment or money or food in that sense, but money alone is not going to take them to the next level. So network, that value of network can sit so much higher than money. So
Mhm.
what Candice is doing, and I've been already searching for your company because we do a small part of that in our program. Our mentorship program is not only about mentoring you through a career, but we know that with that connection, that person who's in that career that you're aspiring to is going to have a seat at a table that can mention your name. That's bigger than anything. You can have the degrees and you can have all of that. You can have the expertise and the training, but some doors and some rooms will only open if you know someone who knows someone who knows someone. Again, community, back to Elder Janelle, community, community, community. Those are one of the biggest things. How can we build a community with trust again, as you were saying, Kathy, that trust in that relationship? We're trying to build something here. So, and a network, it's not built easily. It centers on trust. It centers on reciprocity. So I want to expose you to the network and the connections that I have. But once I do so, please manage it and engage with it in a respectful manner that brings, respect and a good name back to me. So that's one of the other things. And another thing my advice would say is to becoming grant ready. I love when Elder Janelle talked about the diverse ways of making money. And I'm always thinking about diverse revenue in and diverse of what my skills could be. Fundraising and so all those things that you talked about is incredibly important. I wanted to drop for anyone who doesn't know Happily AI. This is an incredible resource. that I don't know if I'll have time, but Happily AI, it's a platform that you can sign up for as an organization, as a business, and it puts your profile in and it will match you with possible grants and funding that you can have. It could work for you while you sleep. You build your profile and it just keeps generating and connecting you to grants that may be well for your company based on your mission and mandate. So I just wanted to put that out there if I forget. On the other end, as a Black woman in a Black business, when we talk about purpose and profitability, sometimes with our community, you can think that, okay, we can show up for free. That is not sustainable for my business. I want to impact and I have purpose with my community, but some of the things, and in order for me to show up requires money. So I want to challenge our community. Yes, we are showing up and we are giving, but also invest back in us so we can continue to do so. Not always expecting a discount, but we have that in-kind idea, which I love that Elder Janelle brought up. It isn't always about money, but we can barter our services. I have a dear friend, we've been 20 years friendship, and I take care of all her branding, everything that she has to do, and she takes care of all my accounting. There's no money in between us, but we have money in between us, right? So this is how we are building each other. This is how we are building as Black women, making room for each other. Yeah, I think Elder, you wanted to jump in. So, you know.
No,
No,
I
I
was
feel
reading that the information that you just mentioned about Happily AI is put in the chat. So
Yes, yes, yes. And dropping back on grant readiness. Grant readiness. I mean, I should have mentioned I'm also a grant writer, which is why I keep grant. Grant readiness. It's one of the ways that you will not be burnt at the midnight hour trying to meet a grant. You have to get in the proactive move of grant writing. And that means that, first of all, knowing the level of all the funding that is always accessible to you. For example, Canada Heritage may have a grant that you always apply to that always matches with you. But we know when that grant comes out. We know that one comes out in April. We know there's one comes out in November. We know we need to get ready. Get ready for what that looks like. Get ready for your financials. What does it look like? The team. How do I build off of my mission? Grant readiness prepares you to be ready to access any grants. You have a project, you have a mission, you have all your documents, you have a folder with all these things that you can just go bam, 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 bam. That's done. That could even get into the place of hiring someone. Happily AI takes over the job of someone searching for grants. So we find those ways of getting the funding in order. The last thing I want to talk about is funding. When you receive funding, read your grants carefully. You can figure out a way to multiply. And I'm going to say that again, because most of the companies that I work with, and I work with a few not-for-profits, you will get the funding, you will inject it into your initiatives and your events. But then next year we have to go back and apply again. We have no money. What can I do? Many social enterprises, they may think about a product. What is a product I could create that is, pushing the initiative, pushing the branding that I can use with some of the funding and then regenerate some money and get back in? It never says you can't make money as a not-for-profit. You can make money. You can generate revenue. You need that to grow. So I think that really what's important is understand funding does not equal sustainability. Many of the government funding programs that exist, there's a huge one that's a part of the SBBCI with Group Transit that's possibly not going to exist anymore. What are all those organizations going to do? What are all of those services that have been built in our community for the past 5 years? What will they do? And recognize this, that Group Transit has been singing sustainability for the past 3 years with intention. Do not become dependent on grants and funding. What is a product or a service that you can then build within your organization that could then serve as a way to generate revenue? I think I'll stop
amen.
there.
I feel Latoya that I went to church.
I, I am
That,
a woman of God.
that was amazing because you dropped so many gems there. And again, community building is so important for me. And you mentioned pay me. And I often say, who taught me the importance of getting paid? It was actually my children. One day, because my kids play the steel pan, all of them from they're 4 years old and they can hold, their arms can play at least one song. They're in our family band. And one day they looked at me and kid number 2 says, Mom, I am not doing anything for free anymore. You keep giving us out to everyone. Everybody wants everything free. We have to practice. It takes time. I'm taking time away from my studies. And I looked at my son and said, "You're absolutely right." And, from then on, I'm like, no, you're going to, not because I smile, like I eat crackers and smile. I have the same smile when I'm eating caviar. So not because I'm smiling, you think that, oh, you don't got to pay me, right? Because I do have bills. And even though I'm smiling, my bills are still coming in. So I think it's important, that concept of being paid. And, you mentioned, Latoya, something that I think a lot of us really, as Black people, we don't understand the importance of, and it's networking. And I can tell you, when you look at especially legacy schools, you look at the old boys networks, it's all about networking. And I remember I was at a conference once and the speaker said, your net worth is your network. And that is so important to remember. And we should be reaching out to people, connecting people. So at the end of this meeting, I know Latoya and Candice are going to link up, right? Elder Janelle and Candice is going to link up. Adibola, we are all linking up. And I think that's so important, right? And for us to grow as a community. And when I was listening to Candice, she was speaking about the sustainability goals. And I want you to spend about 2 minutes talking about that, because I think it's so important. Because when I look at the amazing work that your organization is doing, I was wondering, how are you driving sustainability as part of your business model now? Like, how are you doing that, right? And in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And like I'm snapping, I'm shaking my head, all of it, because like everything that we're saying on here from each of our perspectives, from Elder Janelle, Latoya, Adibola, like all of us have recognized the critical nature of the work that we're doing. And also we're tapping into where these gaps exist and how we are individually and communally filling those gaps. I think that's the first thing that I would say. Um, when it comes to the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs as they're called, the big thing here is recognizing that the SDGs are social issues, right? But the way that um, governments, whether it's national governments or international governments, look at them is not that they're social issues. They're looking at it from an economic development perspective. How are we going to make sure that these social issues don't continue to weigh on our domestic economy? So for us, the biggest thing that we do around our sustainability model is that Latoya talked about it just now when she talks about diverse revenue generation models, right? We had to come to that term really, really quickly because in 2024, we were almost one of those had been organizations who, when the political will changed, like nonprofits were not getting money anymore. I don't know how many of you have tried to apply for a grant, a government grant recently as a nonprofit with no social enterprise component to your work. You're not getting the money. Everyone is looking at sustainability in terms of what you call public-private partnerships. We figured it out on this call, whether you're running a partner, whether you're running a susu, whatever, you're selling a product, right? Product. The thing that we have recognized in our business model is for Black organizations, you're either selling a product or you're selling a service. That's how you have to situate your business so that you are not 100% dependent on a government source grant. Because what happens is when you're 100% dependent on a government source grant, it means that your programs are 6 to 9 months delayed every single year. And when you get a chunk of money, you have 3 months to deliver a 12-month program. What happens with that is you lose trust from community, you lose trust from government because you can't deliver what you promised, even though you're 9 months set back, right? So, what we have done is that we have looked at all the critical components of our programming. What do we offer that is, again, 100% niche? You can only get it from us. That's our product, right? And we put a pricing on that product. Again, it's about sustainability. Our organization has to run. You got to pay us. And we have to help our communities understand, like, we can't give everything away for free, right? Because then we won't be around to provide you with the service that you need. But the other thing that we also recognize is that a lot of Black organizations aren't investment ready. What does that mean? It means that, there's the government offers, whether it's a federal government, provincial government, or municipal government, offers investment readiness programs. Often, and Ajibola, you talked about this, where, our books are not in order most of the times. Um, um, the Latoya talked about groups Transet, and what they offer as an intermediary. FACE, the Federation of African Canadian Economics, they also have a loan program, but for Black entrepreneurs. But guess what? Our books are not in order, so we can't qualify for loans. The one thing I will say about the business model and understanding investment readiness is that I would never start a business on a loan. That is not sustainable. For a lot of nonprofit organizations, that's where you're being pushed because you don't have a product that could sustain your business. And so for me and the organization, future planning, it's about making sure that the organization is investment ready. What is the product that is bankable? What is the product that we offer that is going to not only make sure that our organization continues to exist, and I'm wrapping up here, but also it is mutually beneficial to our community. So first and foremost, we are offering a product that is sustainable outside of our community, but we're also making sure that nonprofits that need our services can get our service, but it's something that keeps the work going and keeps the Black dollar in the Black community much longer than a few hours. We need it to be in our community for days and weeks and months before it exits. So I'll end there, Kathy.
Yeah, so that was amazing. And I tell you that you raise some critical points because I like the concept of being business ready, being investment ready, right? But especially when that opportunity knocks. Because if we have an opportunity and your book's not in order, guess what? We won't be able to take advantage of it. And I think that is crucial. And I can see time is ticking away, but I want to touch on a very, very important question. And if each of you could please, even for 1 minute, just give me your perspective on this question I'm going to ask you, because I want all of you to think about if you could mobilize one resource around one initiative that you feel would transform the future of Black communities, what would it be and why? And Elder Janelle, you can start.
I would choose to work on our relationships because one of the things that kills our organizations very quickly is that break. So, how do we do what we need to do with each other and in a positive way?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Adebola?
I was just gonna say that too. I would say collaboration. As I moved to a new community in 2021, and there wasn't much of like there was nothing like what I'm currently doing. But over the years, programs have evolved. But what I'm saying is everybody's working in silos. People are not willing to collaborate because people want to get their own funding and going after the same funder that you're also going after. I think that can change if we can, come together, trust one another, collaborate. I think collaboration is missing in the Black community, especially amongst Black women. It's more of competition instead of collaboration. And that's not helping anyone. Eventually, things would, you know, not go the way they should go. So I hope that we're able to change that and work collaboratively, support one another, see each other as a family, and that way we're stronger together as a community.
Thank you. Latoya?
Thank you so much. I guess with everything everyone is saying with collaboration and just making room for others, is just understanding that when it comes to all of this program, let's kind of stay in our lanes per se. Like we don't need to be in everything. You know, a big part with a lot of our not-for-profits and our initiatives, sometimes they're touching over the next company. And although we will have similarities, we have to become a people that is comfortable with, okay, if this organization is doing this, what other gap can I fill? Because that puts the competition. And when there's competition, there's a lack for collaboration. And the best thing that we want to do when we're applying for anything out there is to have our community behind us. So let's also be conscious of that, what we're doing. And then it's the trust, you know, for everything that we do for collaboration, sharing of resources, networks, plans, we have to be able to trust each other. So how do we do that? This is something that is within our community, you know, something systemic that lingers there. And so there's a healing that needs to happen with that for many of our communities when when it concerns this topic of collaborating, sharing, and building together. And until that healing it hasn't taken place, it will become difficult for us to build with one mind and to build with making room for others. But I believe I see it in our community. I see it with the friendships that I have and that I'm building. There's a new generation that is coming up that is understanding the idea of not only we hear building a table, we here building a table, but how about we're building a building here and we're opening doors? You know, we're opening doors, we're opening windows and not being threatened by that because there is room for all of us. And when we can bring down those limiting beliefs and we could bring down the ideas that there only needs to be one Black person being excellent in the room, you know, we can understand that this was a lie that was told by us and that we are better when we could understand there is room and I can make room for others to shine and be perfectly successful in who I am and what I can do.
Absolutely. And Candice?
Yes, I would say the biggest thing for me here, all things acknowledged that were previously said, um, intergenerational collaboration. That is so critical because I had the opportunity to bring 19 people to the United Nations for the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent, and it was such a critically important moment having our young people engage directly with elders and not feel like elders are saying youth have to wait their turn because we've all been told to wait our turn, but when it comes time for us to lead, we don't know how to do it because we were waiting our turn so long, nobody held our hand to help teach us how to lead. So that for me is really, really important amongst all the innovation that is happening in our communities. And these are wonderful innovations. But if we are not holding hands with young people and teaching them how to lead, practice leadership while it's not yet your turn, then when it is your turn, you will lead successfully and you will not fall off, make these really, really painful mistakes because elders weren't sharing knowledge with you in the moment when you needed it. That's really, really important. Intergenerational collaboration is what I would say.
Thank you so much. And as Latoya, as you said, you can have more than one brilliant Black woman in a room at a time on a stage. And on this virtual stage, I'm in the presence of brilliance, just unbelievable brilliance. And I could be sitting here all afternoon talking with you. And before I want to wrap it up, I look at what you talk about, the importance of building relationships, collaboration, which is basically trust, staying in your lane, being focused, and intergenerational collaboration. And I tell you, it's so important, all of these things. And I'm the proud mom of one of the youngest delegates at the UN. Well, the youngest, not one of, she was the youngest delegate at the UN. Thanks to this amazing opportunity provided by the amazing, incomparable Queen Candice. And I tell you, it is so important to not buy into the myth that the Black community, we are not thriving. We're doing amazing things, and we just have to make sure we keep telling these stories, right? And I think it's so important. And just hearing the different initiatives that you four there are no words to describe your amazingness, and your initiatives, your hard work, your heart, and in all of this, I want to end on asking each of you in one sentence. Now, I know you are brilliant, so you can count. One sentence, how you take care of yourself doing all of this heavy lifting. Who
I
wants to go?
rest and eat fruit.
Very good.
I have two children. I have a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I play Nintendo Switch with them every chance I can get. Or we just go and hang out in the backyard and throw stones or sticks. That's it.
I have two teenage daughters, 18 and 13, and I just remind them that now they can do some of the work that I do, especially in the house. So they help a lot, and I take time to sleep very well.
I have three boys, all under 6. So my boundary for how I really try to take care of myself, I have intentional spa days. And when I say spa days, I mean at least 9 hours at the spa. And then I also have a no. What I can offer you is this. If it doesn't work for you, that's okay. What you can offer me is this, and I accept that. And those boundaries. That's my real self-care because I could say yes a lot and I will never sleep. So I've worked on that.
Yeah. And saying no is an important part of your mental wellness. I can tell you that. And ladies, thank you so much for spending this amazing Sunday afternoon with me. It was truly an honor to moderate your brilliance. Elder Janelle, Adebola, Candice, and Latoya, thank you, thank you, thank you. The wisdom you have shared, people pay thousands of dollars to hear these nuggets. I really appreciate your selflessness and for sharing your great secrets and your brilliance with us. Until we meet again, and I invite everyone to stay tuned for our next episode 23 next week at the 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Woman Fireside Chats. Thank you.
Look how far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment. It's your time. You stood tall and now you see. Stand